Hello, and welcome to another episode with J Gray Codes. Today's lecture is the first part of a two-part series. Today, we'll be talking about XPath objects, what they're used for, and how to create them. Part 2 will be based on the use of XPath access. These includes things like child, forward-sibling, ancestor, preceding, and many more. It might sound a bit new and fresh right now, but trust me, I'll make sure I make it simple for you to understand. Great news, guys. I have created an ebook. It is called A Beginner's Guide to Software Testing, and it is absolutely free, and it's ready for you to download now. Simply click on the link below, and don't forget to follow my new Instagram, jgraycodes.
XPath page objects. What are XPath objects? XPath in Selenium is an XML path used for navigation through the HTML structure of the page. It is a syntax or language for finding any element on a web page using XML path expressions. XPath can be used for both HTML and XML documents to find the location of any element on a web page using HTML DOM structure. Types of XPaths: absolute XPaths, relative XPaths. Absolute XPaths. It is a direct way to find the element, but the disadvantage of the absolute XPath is that if there are any changes made in the path of the element, then that XPath gets failed. The key characteristics of the XPath is that it begins with the single /, which means you can select the element from the root node. Relative XPaths. Relative XPath starts from the middle of the HTML DOM structure. It starts with double /. It can search elements anywhere on the web page, meaning there's no need to write a long XPath, and you can start from the middle of the HTML DOM structure. Relative XPath is always preferred as it is not a complete path from the root element. Here you will see an example of both absolute and relative XPaths. Looking at both XPaths, you can see that one is longer and one is shorter. Absolute is very precise, whereby relative allows you to roam around the DOM structure. Here we're looking at a website, my website. And all we've done here is basically create two expressions targeting the button check availability. As mentioned, the absolute XPath expression is very precise and long, and the relative XPath is quite flexible and short. XPath access. There are some elements that are known as dynamic elements. These elements tend to change on, for example, refreshing the page or any other operations. Their path access gives the opportunity to find these dynamic elements. XPath access include child, parent, ancestor, sibling, preceding, descendant, and many more. But you know what? Let's create our own XPaths, hey? There are two sections to this. The first section is creating different types of XPaths, and the second is creating XPath access. This includes child, sibling, parent, preceding, and so forth. So if we move over to our notepad, we can see that the first XPath that we're creating will be basic XPath. Here is just an attribute with a text UID. Simple as that. The second just contains XPath. Here there's an attribute called type with the text submit. Here we're just using half of the text itself, rather than using the whole word submit. The next is using or and end. We're basically saying if the button contains the object or attribute at type submit, or it contains at name button reset, then yes, that's the correct button, it will find it. In this case, we've been a bit more strict and we're saying it must contain at type submit and it must contain at name button login. These two attributes must exist before it can pinpoint the specific object on a web page. The next is XPath starts with. Here there are two IDs, message 12, message 345. In this XPath, we're just saying, as long as it starts with the word message, find me those objects. In this case, we'll find these two. The next is XPath with text. This is actually my favorite one. All we're saying here is, on a specific web page, I would rather use the text that I'm seeing right now to locate or to create an XPath. So in this case, the button here says check availability. So here on this XPath, we would put text equals check availability. So we're going to head over to IntelliJ, and we're going to focus on this first part of creating different types of XPaths. What we've done here is we've targeted this website. This is actually my website. And once you get onto the website will be maximized in terms of the window. So you will expand it to make it bigger. And once you maximize the window, you click on this specific XPath. If I show you the manual steps to do that, it would be, this is the website, we maximize the website, and then we click on this free consultation. By the way, you can get free consultation, and I can have a look at any specific software that you have in terms of testing. Okay. All right, so we're on this web page, and what we are going to do is play around with this button, check availability, okay? And I'm gonna make it a bit fun. I'm gonna write a rule that if I succeed, it's gonna print out a text. If I fail, it's gonna print out another text. All right, so what we've done here is driver.find element. So it's gonna find this specific button, and then it's gonna click on it. And it's gonna sleep for a bit because the page needs to load. And then what I've done is that I want you to find this element called please select a service. I want to check that it is displayed. If it is displayed, I want you to tell me J Gray is victorious, because I am victorious after all, aren't I? However, if for whatever the reason it does not find this text, please select a service, or it doesn't find this XPath, it's going to print, seems I must push through the obstacles in front of me. It's quite philosophical, right? I think so too. Yeah, so I would rather see this, J Gray is victorious, rather than to see this, okay? So we have to make sure that the XPaths I'm writing are correct. All right, so this XPath, if I just literally copy this and show you on this page. Remember, to get to the dome, or the Devtools that we call it, right click on any area of the page and click on inspect. Okay? You can make it more direct as well. Because we're playing around with check availability button, you can right click on the button and then click inspect, and then it should take you to the location of this button in terms of HTML structure. Okay. All right. So the XPath that we've just copied, click on, if you're using a Mac, Command and F, and you should see that this find by string selector or XPath is displayed. If you're using Windows, just use Control and F. Okay, now we're going to paste it. Shortcut would be Command and V. There you have it. It's pasted into that field. And it seems that that XPath that we created actually does target this button. And you can see straight away that is a basic XPath attribute plus the text representing that attribute, just like that. So I guess on our notes, we can say we've succeeded in completing the first one, isn't it? Done. But we need to check that this actually does work, okay? Before we celebrate too early. So I'm actually just going to run this. Bearing in mind, if it clicks it, it waits, checks if a text called please select a service is displayed. If it's displayed, which is this assert true, it's going to print this. If it's not displayed, it's going to print this. All right. So let's do it manually. Check availability. It loads. That's the 5 second that we put. Please select a service. And right there and then it should print this. Okay. So we're going to click on this bug icon, debugging. And let's see what happens when we click it. Let's see Does it print? Oh, look at that. Jay Gray is victorious. Victorious. Okay, please select a service. It's meant to be please, not PL. That's why I didn't find it. And that's why I must push through the obstacles in front of me, you see? You know, life can be a bit challenging at times, but we must persevere. All right, so we get the gist of this. All right, so we've created a basic one, okay? So the second one is the one that has a contains. Right now we've got BEP-button-SUB-MIT, right? So let's say we wanted to delete this MIT or even delete all of this, for example. And then, yeah, so we hopefully should still find the button and be able to click on it. All right, so let's go check that out. So here we're going to delete the whole of submit, and then we're going to add contains and open. Then this equals becomes a comma instead. Ooh. Then I need to close this brackets over here, and we do find it. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? We found it. All right, so I'm going to change it and I'm going to run it, and you're all going to have your fingers crossed, right? Okay. I'm going to run it now. Let's see what happened. Jay Gray is victorious. I am victorious, you see. I do this. All right. Meanwhile, my fingers and my toes are crossed, hoping that the others don't fail. Okay, so that's the contains. Now we're using or and end. So what we can do, let's first of all check. Let us check that there are two attributes we can use here. Would you look at that? Look, ID also exists here, so there are two attributes. So if I revert this back to the first one, we've already got the first attribute at class BUP-button-submit, if I put the T there. But now I want to add this one, don't I? I want to add this ID BUP-BTN-next-step 1. I hardly use the or and end, so even for me, I feel like I'm actually testing it. And then we're gonna run program. So it's found that, and Jay Gray is victorious once again. However, in the case of using and, check what happens. In the case of using and, there you go, doesn't find it, because with the word and, it means this must exist and this must exist. We know that this exists at ID, with the BP, BTN next step 1 exists. However, this does not exist, meaning it will fail. So let's see this text on that. I want to see this text, so let's run it. Seems I must push through the obstacles in front of me. In other words, doesn't exist to it. There was no button for it to click because we expected this to also exist properly. So if I change that back to button and I rerun it, let's see what happens. Brilliant. Jay Gray is victorious since we've used the and we've used the right XPaths, or the right attribute, basically. So let's move on to the next XPath, which is XPath starts with. So in this case, if we use this BUP, that's what it starts with, right? Okay. So we're saying that it should work, or at least if we use BUP button, because I believe that there might be more than one XPath or more than one attribute. We need to add the starts with structure. So instead of using contains, all we're doing is saying starts with. So instead of contains, we're saying starts with open bracket, close bracket. It's not finding it, bracket. So let's do it again. I know why. Do you know why? If you know why, write in the comments below why I didn't find it. Okay, so the answer is we're using equals. We need to use comma. Voila. So when you are creating a strict XPath, for example, attribute class equals BUP filter header, we know this equals to that. We're not guessing, okay? We're not leaving it open, relative. We're keeping it absolute. We're keeping it 100. We would use equals. However, when we want to use things like contains, or we might not be too sure, we might say, big starts with and all that stuff, we can use a comma because it's not strict. It's not absolute, okay? Remember that rule. So as you can see, there are 29 attributes that are class attributes that have the text BUP, or starts with BUP. That will fail, my friend. Even if we decide to put, let's say, div, how many will turn up? 26. Ooh, what a reduction. All right, so that is a big fat no in this case. So let's try starts with, let's write more of the text. Starts with, let's get this, right click, inspect this. Button, let's add button to it, B-U-T-T-O-N. And actually I can just check that here, B-U-T-T-O-N. Look at that, 1. Okay, but this is more or less a contains then. So what you just witnessed is that knowing what the different types of XPaths are is quite beneficial. In this case, we wanted to use starts with, but we found that if we use starts with, we're going to end up with, many different, we could potentially end up with different types of attributes with different, with the same, should I say, the same text, okay? So here we've made it a bit more specific and we've added more text, but in this case, we can also decide to use contains. If I change that to contain, this should pick it up. You see, so that's why it's beneficial to know different types of, XPaths that you can create. So now we're going to create text XPaths, okay? This is my favorite one. And all we're doing here is basically finding the text on a web page and targeting them. So for example, we want to find this button, check availability. We will literally write text, as you've already seen before, equals to this text right here. Check availability. So if you do right click, inspect, check availability, and then close the brace here, you find it. If you want to do contains, you put a comma, open brackets, close brackets, and you find it as well. If you want to get rid of some of the text, you can see it's still finding it. Check, it still found it. If I put availability, it will find it. The ava, they, li, the. It's not finding it. Why isn't it finding it? Avail. Let's go availability. Yeah. There you go. And that's why, all the XPaths and all the different types of XPaths are quite beneficial. Okay. So what we're going to do, we are going to put it into our script to see if it works. Alrighty, let's run this. And boom, J Gray, victorious. Okay, so that is worked, all right? So as you can see, even if we get rid of some of the words, it will still find it, all right? And those are the different types of XPaths that exist. There are more actually, but for now, I think having knowledge of these ones will definitely get you a long way, So what we're going to do now is have a look at the second section, which is the XPath axis, for example, child, sibling, and so forth. So come on. Now that you've finished watching the video, I'm sure you found it to be of great use. There are many different ways of creating XPaths. The ways I've shown you today are very simple and definitely very beneficial. I've recently written an ebook. It's called Software Testing for Beginners, and you can download it with the link below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, this is the perfect chance to join my family and to join my community. I've opened up a new Instagram account. It's called jgraycodes. Head over and follow. Apart from that, don't forget to like, to comment, to share, and to remain happy. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on my Instagram or leave a comment below. Apart from that, love, peace, and unity. Ciao.